Hello, David McKinley here of Central Schwenkfelder Church. This Sunday is All Saints Sunday, in which we will recognize many people who have passed on over the last year, who were close to us, who were members of our church, who we admired and treasured their faith as we also lived for the Lord. We're also going to be talking about an interesting person in the history of the Old Testament whose name is Gideon. Gideon, of course, was one of the leaders that God used in the life of his people. And what we know about Gideon is that he was a flawed person, but that he loved the Lord. But he made his share of bad decisions. And what's interesting about the charismatic leaders that God gave to the people of Israel during that time is that they were not perfect people, but rather they had a specific set of gifts to lead God's people at that particular time. Judges chapter 2, verse 17 reads, "Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Yet they did not listen to their judges, for they whored after other gods and bowed down to them. They soon turned aside from the way in which their fathers had walked, who had obeyed the commandments of the Lord, and they did not do so." The book of Judges, of course, tells of the awful cycle of God's people after the days of Joshua, and they were occupying the promised land, and they started to blend in with the environment in the respect that they worshiped other gods, and they followed after the gods of the Canaanites. And so in the days of Gideon, this was the situation. And as usual, the cycle was such that the people would follow after other gods. The Lord would raise up a foreign people to oppress and afflict the people of Israel. They would cry out for justice and for help and turn to the Lord, and then the Lord would raise up a judge, a charismatic leader that would bring victory over the oppressor, and then the people would draw back to God and love him and serve him for a number of years, and there would be peace in the land until the people forgot about God and would again worship other gods and idols. In the days of Gideon, the Midianites were that oppressor, and God would hear the cries and the prayers of his people, and he raised up Gideon to defeat the Midianites. But once that victory was secured, then the people wanted to make Gideon king, as we read in Judges chapter 8. But Gideon said, "I will not be king over you. The Lord is to be your king." And then Gideon, although well-intentioned, he made a very poor judgment, in that he collected all the gold from the Ishmaelites and made an ephod, which was a priestly garment, and put it in his city. And I think that Gideon's intentions it was to remind them of the law of the Lord, or the days of devotion under Joshua or Moses. But it backfired, and the people started worshiping the ephod, the priestly garment that Gideon made. And so the people then fell away from God as a result. And so it teaches us many valuable lessons, that the predisposition of our hearts without Christ is that we would worship things, and we would fall prey to slavery of our flesh to things that provide immediate gratification. And so it's a good lesson for us to know that the Lord has made us for himself. And we are not to worship things, but we are to worship God and God alone. The Ten Commandments, of course, read, "You shall have no other gods before me." and you shall not make a graven image unto thee. And so we recall that on this All Saints weekend, that we remember God. That's the one that we are to remember the most, is to remember God and his deeds in history. Of course, the pinnacle of which is what Jesus did for us on the cross over 2,000 years ago when he gave his life, and then he rose again from the dead so that he would abolish death for all who put their trust in him. I hope that you will join us this Sunday. 9 o'clock is our traditional service, and 10:45 is our contemporary service. May the Lord bless you, and have a safe weekend.